This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. Welcome back. Hope everyone had a nice Yom Tov. So now we're in what the Ramban calls the HaOmer, in between Pesach and Atzeres. The Ramban writes that just like the Yom Tov of Sukkot has 7 days, and then followed by Atzeres, so too the Yom Tov of Pesach has 7 days, followed by Shavuos, followed by Atzeres. And we know the days of the HaOmer are kicked off by the mitzvah of Sefiras HaOmer, which according to almost all the Rishonim is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan b'zman hazeh. Either the Gemara says that HaOmer says b'zman hazeh we only count the days and we don't count the weeks because it's only a zecher l'mikdash, and even the Chachamim that say we count the days and we count the weeks, most Rishonim say that even according to the Chachamim, the Sefiras HaOmer is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan because the mitzvah is triggered by the carbon HaOmer, which we no longer have, and therefore, b'zman hazeh, the mitzvah of Shiur would only be midrabanan. However, the Rambam is one of the few Rishonim who l'chayra hold that Sefiras HaOmer is d'oraisa. The Rambam in Hilchos Tmidim U'Musafim in Parak Zayin says the Rambam mitzvah saseh. There's a positive commandment, Lisvar Sheva Shabbosos Tamimos, to count 7 complete weeks, Miyom Havas HaOmer, from the day of bringing the HaOmer, Shenemar, Usfartem Lochem, Mimachras HaShabbos, Sheva Shabbosos. U'mitzvah Limnois Hayomim, Imashvos, it's a mitzvah to count days, it's a mitzvah to count weeks. Shenemar, Tisberu Chamishim Yom. So the Torah says, Sheva Shabbosos, the Torah says Chamishim Yom, so it's a mitzvah to count days and it's a mitzvah to count weeks. Okay, and Umetchilas Hayom Moinem, we count from the beginning of the day, and that's why we start to count in the nighttime. Says the Rambam in Mitzvah Chav Daled, Mitzvah Zu Al Kol Ishmi Yisrael. Every Jew, every man, every Jewish male is obligated to this mitzvah. Uvechol Makom, it doesn't matter where you live. Whether you live in Eretz Yisrael, whether you live in Kigarn Hills. Uvechol Zman, says the Rambam, it doesn't matter when you live. You could live in the year 70, you could live in the year 2016, Tavshinayin Vav, whatever year you happen to live in, there is a mitzvah saseh of Sefiras HaOmer. So the Rambam is clear that b'zman hazeh, Sefiras HaOmer is still a mitzvah d'oraisa. Says the Rambam, V'noshim va'avadim peturim mimena. Women and slaves are exempt from the mitzvah. Now, why are women exempt from the mitzvah of Sefiras HaOmer? Quite obvious. Says the Kesef Mishnah, V'mashakasav v'noshim va'avadim peturim mimena, mishum de mitzvahs aseh shezman gramahu. It's a mitzvah which is governed by time. If there ever was one, if there was ever a mitzvah that was governed by time, it's got to be Sefiras HaOmer. There's no mitzvah which is more governed by time than is Sefiras HaOmer. I mean, the whole mitzvah is a time-oriented mitzvah. You're counting days. You're counting it in the nighttime. Of course, women are pater from Sefiras HaOmer. Now, just let's digress momentarily. The Mishnah Brura in Siman Taf Pei Tes Sif Kata and Gimel, it's not on your sheets, brings down the psak of the Mechaber. The Mechaber passes like the Rambam that women are exempt from Sefira. Comes the Magen Avram, Miu Kvar Shavya Alayu Chayva, that women have already placed it upon themselves as an obligation. No, he doesn't say some. He says all. Kvar Shavya Alayu Chayva, that women have already placed it upon themselves as an obligation. Comes the Minchas Chinuch. Are you related? The Minchas Chinuch was Tenenbaum, no? No, excuse me, no, the wrong name. Babad, excuse me. I'm going to get to somebody else, a different Tenenbaum. But the Minchas Chinuch asks, he's matmiya on the Magen Avram. He says, "Well, yadati moitza advarim shel devrei Magen Avram." I don't know what the Magen Avram is talking about. Women already took it upon themselves as a chayv. Which women? Which women? Since when was there the national FSC, National Feminist Sefira Convention, that women were makabel upon themselves as a chayv Sefiras HaOmer? Since when did women get together and say, we hereby have accepted Sefira upon ourselves? Says Minchas Chinuch, I don't know what the Magen Avram is talking about.
You don't have the 7.
That's not on the sheet. It's not on the sheet. Just keeping you on your toes. So the Magen Avram says that women were makabel them upon themselves as a chayv. However, the Minchas Chinuch is matmiya mehechi teisi women were makabel, and the Magen Avram says that b'mdino iseinu loy noagu nashi klal lisbar. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah says that if women would like to count, let's say a woman wants to count, so she's not chayiv. Let's say a woman wants to count. So the Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Shulchan Shloimeh, she should absolutely not make a bracha. She should not make a bracha. For 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is they'll definitely make a mistake. Bevadai yitu b'yoymech. They'll for sure make a mistake. You say, why do we have such a pessimistic prognostication about what women... No, it's optimistic that we hope they have family business to attend to, and life is very hectic. They will definitely make a mistake. And number 2, another very complimentary reason why women should not make a bracha is he says, Al piroiv einam yoidim perish hamilos. Most women do not even know simple Lashon HaKodesh to know the translation of the words. Now you'll ask, why do you have to know the translation of the words for? So what? So what if you don't know? You say Hayom Yom Echad Ba'omer Hayom Yom Echad Sh'Yom Sheni La'omer. Why do you have to know the meaning of the words? It's not ma'akiv in Shema to know the purest. It's not ma'akiv in other tefillos. So why do they have to know? L'chayr, the reason is because the mitzvah is to count. And if you don't know the meaning of the words, you're not doing a ma'isa of counting. You're not doing anything.
It's meaningless.
It's not just some kind of ritual incantation, hocus pocus. It's counting. If you don't know that this word means 2, and this word means 3, and this word means 4, you're not counting.
But can't you say it in English?
Yeah.
Yeah, but those women, they're not going to do that. They didn't have art scroll back then. Right? You're going to count in a different language? They're not going to do that. So since they don't know what they're talking about, therefore, they should not make a bracha. Now you could ask, Bizman hazeh, it's a different story. First of all, most women, Bizman hazeh, you would assume they know Lashon HaKodesh most of the time better than the men. Right. And in terms of remembering, often they'll be the ones to remind you. But nevertheless, this is what the Mishnah Berurah says. But you should know that al pi Kabbalah, women should not count Sefiras HaOmer. The Raya Mehemna in Parshas Emor, the Chida brings down, Raya Mehemna says women do not count Sefira. Also the Zohar in Parshas Saveh, women do not count Sefira. In the house of the stipler, women counted Sefira with a bracha. So you say, but they'll definitely forget. Not if you have the stipler reminding you. They're not going to forget. They're not going to forget. What? Most women do count? With the bracha? I don't know. In my house, women don't count Sefira. Okay. What? Okay.
You're not the stipler.
Yeah, it's the chesar's in me, not in the... Okay. But again, al pi Kabbalah, it's brought down, women should not count. Fine. So, lo and behold, we have the comments of the Ramban, and this is really what's going to be the focus of today's shir. The Ramban in Masechta Kedushin, where the Mishnah over there enumerates the mitzvah saseh shehazman grama and mitzvah saseh she'ein hazman grama, the Ramban says like this. Look at number 3. Uve mitzvah saseh she'ein hazman grama. The Mishnah lists certain mitzvah saseh she'ein hazman grama, and says the Ramban, Shiur tuva. The Mishnah left out a lot. For example, Moira, fearing your father and mother. V'kavod, honoring your father and mother. Bikurim, the mitzvah of Bikurim is Ein Hazman Grama. Chala, the mitzvah of Chala is Ein Hazman Grama. You could mafresh Chala anytime. Kisei Hadam. What's Kisei Hadam? Kisei Hadam, when you shach, right? An oif or a chaya, you have to cover the blood. What bracha do you make? Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'tzvosav, v'tzivanu, chasos hadam, be'afar. You have to add the word be'afar. Why do you have to add the word be'afar? You don't have to say al natilos yadayim al hayadayim. You don't say lahaniach tefillin al hayad. You don't say l'satif b'tzitzis al haguf. Why do you say l'chasos dam be'afar? The answer is because there are two mitzvahs. The Noisei Kalim explain. You have to put afar not only on top of the dam, you have to put afar below the dam as well, and therefore it's l'chasos dam be'afar. Fine. And then comes the Ramban, Matanois, the Matnas Kahuna, Sefiras HaOmer. Sefiras HaOmer is a mitzvah saseh she'ein hazman grama. Prika, Te'ina, Pidyon Peter Chamar. V'roi v'amitzvahs ke'em most mitzvahs are ein hazman grama. Are you up? Did you hear what the Ramban said? That Sefiras HaOmer is a mitzvah saseh she'ein hazman grama. You hear what the man is saying? Nachmanides. He's saying Sefira is not governed by time. And in that case, if not governed by time, then whether they're going to definitely make a mistake, not definitely make a mistake, whether they know what they're talking about, then according to Ramban, they would be mechuyev to count Sefiras HaOmer just like a man. A pella of a Ramban.
He's the only one that says that?
The only one. Not the Rambam, not the Rosh, not the Rif, not the Rashba, not the Ritva, not the Ritz Geos, not Rabbeinu Yerucham, nobody, just the Ramban.
The Rambam also says it, by the way.
The Rambam says,
Mitzvah zu al kol ish mi Yisrael v'chol mokom
V'nashim Peturin.
v'chol zman, but he says chol zman.
V'chol zman means
Yeah, no, in all the eras. But
no, according to Rambam, he holds it's Zman Grama. That's why Nashim are Potter.
Shtickle.
V'chol zman means, he says it by many mitzvahs. V'chol zman means even b'zman she'en beis hamikdash kayim. The Ramban says it's ein hazman grama.
There's a shtickle at the hair.
The Ramban is a das yachid, where he says that Sefiras HaOmer is mitzvah saseh she'en hazman grama. Comes the Avnei Nezer, Shal Sechuvas Avnei Nezer, Archaim Siman Shin Pei Dalet. Avnei Nezer, of course, is the Rebbe of Sachet. He lived from 1839 to 1910. He writes, Asher hukshaloi b'divrei Ramban shemono Sefiras HaOmer b'chlal mitzvah she'en hazman grama v'ha'inyan paloi. It's a pella. Says the Avnei Nezer, a whopper of a chiddush. You ready for this? Says Avnei Nezer, let's clear chakira. When do you start the mitzvah of Sefiras HaOmer? On the 16th day of Nisan, or on the day after the 15th? You hear the chakira? When do you start counting Sefira? The day after the 15th or the 16th? You say, what in the world are you talking about? It's the same day. Right? No! There's a big difference between the day after the 15th and the 16th. If Sefira was triggered by the 16th, then it would be a pella on the Ramban. The 16th of Nisan, it's Zman Grama. The 16th is a Zman. If it's Goyrem on if the 16th of Nisan is Goyrem, the Haschala of Sefiras HaOmer, then this would be a quintessential mitzvah saseh Zman Grama. But the answer is nowhere does the Torah say you start counting Sefira on the 16th day of Nisan. The Torah says you start counting on the day after the 15th. Mimachras HaShabbos. Now, we know it's not. So you say, that's also a Zman. The same way the 16th of Nisan is a Zman, the day after the 15th is a Zman. Yeah, but listen carefully. It's a Zman that women are chayiv in. What does that mean? We know that when it comes to all the mitzvahs of Pesach, women are chayiv in that Shabbos. When we say Mimachras HaShabbos, it's the day after Pesach. That Pesach, that Shabbos, is a date on the calendar that women are chayiv in every aspect of. Do they have to eat the Karim Pesach?
Yes.
Yeah. Do they have to eat matzah?
Yes.
Yeah. Do they have to eat maror?
Yes.
Yeah. Do they have to eat masaper, b'yitzias Mitzrayim?
Yes.
According to the Sefer HaChinuch, yeah. Not according to the Rambam.
But it's all the same day.
Memela,
Night is already at night.
Memela, if you want to know what trigger, what's the mechayiv of Sefira? The mechayiv of Sefira is Pesach. So since the Zman that's mechayiv Sefira is the Zman that women are chayiv in, they're chayiv in the 15th of Nisan, Sai in the Pesach, Sai in the Matzah, Sai in the Marah, in the Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim as well. Therefore, the same way they're chayiv in the 15th, they're chayiv in everything the day after the 15th, and they would be chayiv in Sefiras HaOmer as well. Therefore, says the Avnei Nezer, look what he writes. He says, "V'efshar Sefira Ramban, the Omer loy tolsa tar b'zman atzma shemakriva moy." The Omer is not dependent on that inherent zman. Hainu she'akriva Omer b'taz zayin b'nisan. You don't bring the Omer on the 16th. Rak mimachos haShabbos, the day after the 15th, which is Metargaminon mibasar yom atava. Im kain ein zman tez zayin b'nisan goyrem. It's not the 16th, which is goyrem. So you say, so what? That's just semantics. It's the day after the 15th. He says, Halai kol mitzvahs haShabbos, noshim chayavos, Pesach, Matzah, Mara, Sibur Yitzis Mitzrayim according to the Chinuch, and therefore the HaOmer also you can't exempt them. He says if you're going to say that Ketziras HaOmer you're not allowed to do during the day, then you would have to admit that the nighttime is also goyreim the mitzvah. But the shita of the Rambam is niktsar b'yom kosher, and therefore safar b'yom kosher. That's pshat in the Ramban. That Sefira is mitzvah saseh she'in hazman grama. Why? Because it's a zman that women are chayvin. But, says Avnei Nezer, I must admit that if you learn the Zohar HaKadosh, the Zohar says explicitly in Parsha Tetzaveh that women don't count Sefiras HaOmer. And by the way, the reason is it has something to do with the purification of the zav, of ziva, which is not noiheges and noyeg by a woman. Okay. But in any event, this is the pshat of the Avnei Nezer, which l'cha'ira is very difficult to say. Why? Because this might be a good reason to obligate women in Sefira, but he's not trying to come up with a reason to obligate women in Sefira. He's trying to explain the Ramban. And the Ramban says Sefira is ein hazman grama. This is not an explanation why Sefira is ein hazman grama. This is saying Sefira is man grama. But it's a zman that women are chayivin. Because if I ask you, matzah, women are chayiv, is it ein zman grama? Of course not. Matzah ein lecha zman grama gedol mizu. It's lel tezvav before chatzos. But why are women chayiv? Because kol sheyeshna bebal toichal chametz yeshna betoichal matzos. Nobody would say matzah is ein zman grama. It's zman grama. It's just a zman that women are chayivin. So the Avnei Nezer's answer seems, at least to me, to be difficult because it's not really sufficiently saying pshat the Ramban. The Ramban is saying it's ein hazman grama, and the Avnei Nezer is not explaining why it's ein hazman grama. He's saying it's man grama, but women are chayiv, irrespective of that fact. So we continue to try to explore a rationale for the Ramban of how Sefiras HaOmer could be ein hazman grama. Let's talk about mitzvos d'Rabbanan in general. As we said, according to almost all the Rishonim, Sefiras HaOmer is d'Rabbanan. How many mitzvos d'Rabbanan are there? How many mitzvos d'Rabbanan are there? 7. There's 7 mitzvos d'Rabbanan. Okay. Tel Yadayim, Halal, Erevin, 7 mitzvos d'Rabbanan. There is a machlokes between the Bahag and the Rambam. Both the Bahag and the Rambam, both the Bahag and the Rambam say that all the mitzvos d'Rabbanan are d'oraisa, because the Torah says lo yisasur yamin small mikol asher yerucha. There's one difference between the Rambam and the Bahag, and that is the Bahag counts each mitzvah d'Rabbanan as a separate mitzvah d'oraisa. Tel Yadayim is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Erevin is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Each one is counted separately as a mitzvah d'oraisa. And the Rambam says, no, all 7 are one mitzvah d'oraisa of lo yisasur yamin usma mikol asher yerucha. What's the machlokes? So we have over here a sefer that we've quoted very rarely, if ever. The name of the sefer is Midos L'Cheker HaHalacha. It's quoted number 5 from Rav Moshe Avigdor Amiel. Rav Moshe Avigdor Amiel, I believe, was chief rabbi of Tel Aviv, and tremendous lamdin, a very interesting personality. And he wants to explain what's the machlokes between the Rambam and the Bahag. The Rambam says all 7 mitzvahs d'Rabbanan are one mitzvah d'oraisa, and the Bahag says all the 7 mitzvahs d'Rabbanan, each one independently is a separate mitzvah d'oraisa. Let me ask you a question. Your father one day tells you, sonny boy, I'm hot. Put the air conditioner on 66. Okay, so you go do it, you're mekayem the rest. The next day he says, sonny boy, I'm not as hot as yesterday. I want a 67. The next day, he says, I want it on 68. So he did it 3 times. Did you do 3 separate mitzvahs? It's one mitzvah. You're Mekayim, the same mitzvah. Kibbut Avayim. Yeah, but this day it was a 66, and that was a 67, and the next was a 68. Shkoyach. It's not like you did one day, you did the Achilas Matzah, one day Netilas Lulav and Esrog, and one day Tefillin. It was a mitzvah of Kibbut Avayim each day. Yeah, but today my father wanted me on 66, and 67, another 68. That just happens to be that his will on one day was slightly different than the other day, but it doesn't make it that the mitzvah I did on Tuesday was a different mitzvah than the mitzvah I did. Yeah, I'm going to get credit for 2 separate mitzvahs, but not for two different mitzvahs. In other words, I got another mitzvah of Kibbut Avayim, but I didn't get a different mitzvah. It's the same mitzvah. It's Kibbut Avayim.
But it's 3 mitzvahs.
It's 3 mitzvahs.
And it's no chiluk if it's 66 every day.
Whatever he wants me to do, I just did what he wanted. I have a question. If one day he said, get me Coke, and the other day Snapple, and the third day Be'er Mayim Chayim, half and half, is it 3 different It's a mitzvah! Kibbut Avayim. Honor your father and mother. What if he comes and he says, what if your father says, every day at 6:30 p.m., I want you to get me J&J chocolate milk. Every day. 6:30 p.m. Is this now a mitzvah saseh shehazman grama? And if not my lamay nafkamina, if he tells his daughter, I want to drink every evening at 7 o'clock, is she patur now? Because it's a mitzvah shehazman grama? What do you say? Chayiv or patur?
Chayiv.
Why is she chayiv? Ein l'cha zman grama gedoy l'mizu.
Kibbut Avayim.
Yeah, but it's governed by time.
It's 24/7 she's supposed to do Kibbut Avayim.
Yeah, but this mitzvah is governed by time. The answer is, the mitzvah is to listen to your father. It happens to be, in this case, there's a subjective whim that he wants you to get the water at this and this time. But that doesn't change the definition of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is honor your father and mother. Well, maybe we can make the same case. Says Rav Moshe Avigdor Amiel, the machloikis between the Bahag and the Rambam is, how do we view mitzvahs d'Rabbanan? The Bahag says that whatever the rabbis say, the Torah says, do that, do that, do that. The rabbis say, wash your hands before bread. The Torah says, wash your hands before bread. The rabbis say, make an Erev. The Torah says, make an Erev. The rabbis say Hallel. The Torah says, make Hallel. Whatever the Rabbanon say, the Torah designates and says, do that. But the Rambam says, what are you talking about? There's one mitzvah d'oraisa. Just listen to whatever it is the Chachamim tell you. They tell you to say Hallel, say Hallel. They tell you to wash until them, wash until them. Washing the tilas yadayim and saying Hallel according to the Rambam is the same mitzvah. It's the same way if my father said one day get Snapple and the other day get seltzer. It's the same mitzvah. So too, the Rabbanon say Hallel, and the next day they say wash until them. It's the same mitzvah. The mitzvah is listen to the Chachamim, whatever they happen to tell you. Breakthrough. You ready for this? And what if the Rabbanon say count Sefiras HaOmer, but do it in the nighttime? Is that Zman Grama? Or is that Ein Zman Grama? It's Ein Zman Grama! The mitzvah is just listen to the rabbis, whatever they happen to tell you to do. But in this case, they told you to do something at a specific time. But the mitzvah is, the Torah is not saying whatever they say, we say to do that. The Torah is just giving an umbrella, general category. Whatever it is that Chachamim happen to tell you to do, we endorse that decision. But you're not listening to the Torah by listening to the specifics of the Chachamim. It's just whatever it is that Chachamim happen to tell you, whatever their subjective ratzon is endorsed by the Torah. If you say that, I'm going to come to you in a second, then according to the Rambam, says Rabbi Warman, Chvarna Levracha, according to the Rambams, according to Rav Moshe Avigdor Amiel, that every mitzvah d'Rabbanan is not that the Torah comes in and says specifically, listen to that. It's just one of the ways of fulfilling the ratzon of the Torah of Loisas or Yom N'Smoil. In that case, Sefiras HaOmer would be Ein Zman Grama. What do you mean? But you can only count Sefira at night. The same way, if my father tells me to get me a drink every night, that's Ein Hazman Grama. If the Chachamim say count Sefira at night, it's Ein Hazman Grama. The mitzvah d'oraisa is not to listen to this specific mitzvah. The mitzvah d'oraisa is whatever they happen to tell you, make sure you follow.
It's not only not the mitzvah, it's a manifestation of basically to listen to the rabbis.
So that's the chakira between the Bahag and the Rambam. The Bahag would say every separate mitzvah d'Rabbanon, the Torah would say do that thing that the Chacham tell you, and then it would be Zman Grama.
So why do we say? Why do we say, according to the opinion that it's part of what the Chachamim say, bracha on Sefiras HaOmer, when we don't say bracha on listening to the rabbis?
Why do we make a bracha on Sefira?
Well, we make a bracha on Sefiras.
Yes, you want to make a bracha on Sasor rather than.
We never make a bracha of Lo Sasor. When do we make a bracha of Lo Sasor?
No, is that what he said?
Why don't we make a bracha on Lo Sasor?
Is that what the mitzvah? Is that what we're doing?
Now it's a law.
What is the mitzvah?
The Gemara says by Ner Chanukah. That the Gemara says you make a bracha on Ner Chanukah v'tzivana. The Gemara asks Heichan Tzivana, and the Gemara answers Lo Sasor Yom V'Nesma. So in other words, the Gemara's understanding is that is what you're making a bracha on.
It's not a mitzvah saying.
So it's not a mitzvah saseh. That's why when you say the Shem Yichud, you should not say mitzvah saseh. So really? Yeah. Who says this? All the poskim. Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Moshe Halberstam. Only Svardik, Hasidish, and Litvish poskim. Only they say you can't say mitzvah saseh. It's not a mitzvah saseh. It's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Now, how can you say l'shem yichud kudsha b'richud l'kayim mitzvah saseh? It's not a mitzvah saseh. So you don't say it. You say l'kayim mitzvah sfira. Yeah, it's in the siddur. It's in the siddur. That's a separate shiur. I didn't want to give it yet. I'm going to probably give it next week or the week after.
Why is it not a mitzvah? Why is it? It's a set of Patron of MMH. Why is it not a Torah?
Because we don't have a Kavod HaOmer b'zman hazeh. In fact, Rav Moshe Halberstam says the whole thing's a steer minei obey. Afterwards, you say Harachim lo yaslana avos b'samigdash. Why are you davening for that? Because you're acknowledging there's not a mitzvah d'oraisa. So how are you starting off with the kind of mitzvah saseh? Make up your mind.
You can say mitzvah saseh, not mitzvah saseh d'oraisa. It's a mitzvah to do.
There's no such thing as a mitzvah saseh d'Rabbanan.
No, the mitzvah of Chon tells you to do it.
So then what's? I know what it says in the siddur.
Yeah, it's a saseh.
I know you shouldn't say it. Tell me who printed it. Okay, who printed this?
Hebrew poet.
Kaftor Publishing, 544 Park Avenue, 5th floor. So he holds one way. Rabbi Yosef and Moshe Halberstam and the Poskim, they hold another way.
Touche, very good.
Okay.
So it's the.
Our skull also has.
I like the answer.
Okay.
But there.
Let's go weiter. So Lefiza, this would be. By the way, Rav Sternbach also in the Tshuvas Hanhaga says you don't say mitzvahs. Says Rav Sternbach even worse. Says Rav Sternbach. I don't want to say that. He says if you say it, you're over 11 the Torah of Baal Tosef. Because he says Chazal say this is an old shir. Remember? We have to. So. Yeah. Anyway, that's a different time. Different time.
So it's that
Mitzvah Sefirat HaOmer.
Yeah, that's a Bavadia Siddur. Yeah. Okay. You could say mitzvah Sefiras HaOmer, not but mitzvah saseh. Then now, what about l'shem yichud? That's a different issue. Okay.
This is a shel Sefiras HaOmer.
Mitzvah shel Sefira. It's a mitzvah shel Sefira. Okay. Anyway, Lefizeh, according to this understanding, this would be an answer for the Ramban. That the Ramban says that Sefiras HaOmer is mitzvah it's ein hazman grama. What?
Men also, not the same mitzvah saseh, just women. Mitzvah saseh.
Men.
Why is it not mitzvah saseh?
Because
yeah,
yeah, but we don't have the Kavod HaOmer anymore. We don't have a Kavod HaOmer. I I don't know.
It was a mitzvah.
So-
There are some who defend it. I'm just telling you, Rabbi Vadia says take it out. Rabbi Moshe Halberstam says take it out. The Rabbi Moshe Sternbach said you can't say it. Okay. Anyway, this would be a potential answer for the Ramban, and that is the Ramban says it's ein hazman grama. How could that be? If you say like this, that it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, and every mitzvah d'Rabbanan, according to the Rambam, is just a general way of fulfilling the mitzvah d'Oraisa of Loisasor. So if you say like that, then it could be construed as ein hazman grama, because it's just a subjective way of fulfilling the mitzvah of Loisasor Yom Ismail Mikol Asher Yerucha. But Amar Rabbi Sai, even this answer would seem to be problematic, because in that case, the concept of ein hazman grama would not be specific to Sefiras HaOmer. Every single mitzvah d'Rabbanan, which is man grama, according to this chiddush, would be ein hazman grama. So why would the Ramban say Sefiras HaOmer? He should just say mitzvahs d'Rabbanan. Yeah. The fact that the Ramban is namanon on dafka Sefiras HaOmer, that's mashma. It's not all mitzvahs d'Rabbanan, but specifically mitzvahs Sefiras HaOmer. And therefore, we continue on our journey. What is the pshat in the Ramban? And the Ramban says that Sefiras HaOmer is a mitzvah she'ein hazman grama. Let's talk about another mitzvah. Kiddush Levana. Kiddush Levana is certainly a mitzvah she'hazman grama. And obviously you can only do it in the beginning of the month. You can only do it in the beginning of the month.
According to Rabbi Obam, it's not.
According to Rabbi Obam. Oh, good. Shh, don't give it away. Don't give it away. Don't give it away. Shh. Very good.
Yeah, 2 months ago.
The Parsha simply, Kiddush Levana is what? Zman Grama. So you say, okay, and therefore women would be pater. Can women do Kiddush Levana if they want to? Say, why not? Any mitzvah saseh shehazman grama, women could do.
Well,
Comes the Magen Avram in Siman Tav Chavav, and the Magen Avram says that Kiddush Levana. Now, the Magen Avram does say that Kiddush Levana is man grama. The Magen Avram writes explicitly, Kiddush Levana is man grama. Could women do it? Says the Magen Avram, Af de b'chol mitzvah saseh shehazman grama, no yeheges hanoshim shemiskayemes umevarchais. Kiddush Levana, women are not allowed to do. Anyone here ever see women do Kiddush Levana? Yeah. I never saw women do Kiddush Levana. Wow. Women, says the Magen, should not do Kiddush Levana. Why? Because why do we say Kiddush Levana? We're asking Hashem to imamale the Pekimas HaLevana. It's her fault. She's the one who messed up the moon, so she can't say the bracha. So Rabbi is asking, 1 second. It's easy for someone to be a scapegoat, but how could you blame women and being plaguing in the Levana? The Levana was nifgam on the 4th day of creation. Chava was not even come down to this world yet. How could you blame the begimas Levana on Chava? Chava did not come down to the world until 2 days later. And already on day 4, the pasuk says, right? Es hamor hagadav, es hamor hakatan. So that's the question. The Magen Avram is quoting the Shla, and if you look in the notes on the Shla, in the Yad Ramah, he asks, how could you blame Pegimas HaLevana on Chava? It's because of the Eitz Hadas. The Levana was nifgam even before the Chet HaEitz Hadas. And the Aruch HaShulchan says, it's still her fault. So, it's still her fault. Somehow the Chet of the Eitz Hadas affected the Pegimas HaLevana. And how, that's beyond the scope of today's shiur. But bottom line is, the Magen Avram says that Kiddush Levana is Zman Grama. What? Zman Grama. Comes of Shlomo Kluger in the Chachma Shlomo, and he says, with all due respect to the Magen Avram, it's Tamua Ma'oid. I don't understand what the Magen Avram is talking about when he says that Kiddush Levana is man grama. Ein lo inyan klal la mitzvah saseh shezman grama. This has no shaychus to zman grama. What's Zman Grama? Says Rav Shlomo Kluger. Let me define what Zman Grama is. Zman Grama is a mitzvah. The mitzvah of achilas matzah. The mitzvah is sitting in the sukkah. The mitzvah is taking the lulav. That's the mitzvah. The Zman Grama is, what is the frame, the misgeres of the mitzvah? A mitzvah that potentially could have been done at any time. Comes the Torah, and the Torah superimposes a parameter of the mitzvah, and that is, you have to do it at a certain time. Taking lulav and esrog, you could shake, daytime, nighttime. You could shake Lag BaOmer. You could shake Tisha B'Av. I saw a picture, this is the funniest picture from Purim. The best costume ever. Guy dresses up, Stramel, a Bekisha, and he comes into Shul Purim from Megillas Esther with his lulav and esrog. So the guy was been saving his lulav and esrog, for months to be able to come into Shul. Technically, you could do it any time. Comes the Torah and says, no, we put a time frame on the mitzvah. You could only do it in the 7 days between the 15th day of Tishrei and the 21st day of Tishrei. Matzah. You could eat matzah whenever you want. You could theoretically be mekayim the mitzvah of matzah whenever you want, if not for the fact that the Torah put a time frame on the mitzvah. That's Zman Grama. Hagava atzmacha. Do women make a shachiyanu on a new fruit? Say a woman eats one of these, every year they come up with new fruits for Rosh Hashanah. I don't know what planets they get them from. Could a woman make a shachiyanu? No, it's man grama. It's only in the beginning of the year. It's only in the beginning of the season. Shkayach. That's because for it to be new, it has to be in the beginning of the season. The physical phenomenon only presents itself one time at the beginning. It's not that. It's something that could theoretically have been any time, and the Torah is putting a framework. In the case of the new fruit only presents itself at the beginning of the season. Says the Magen Avraham, the same thing with the moon.
New fruit means you haven't had that.
Yeah, I haven't had it yet. It's new
to you. That don't mean it's new to the season.
This year.
It wasn't caused. It's a mistake.
In other words, it's not the Torah putting a framework on it. It's the physical phenomenon only presenting itself at a certain time. Says Rav Shlomo Kluger, how could you say Kiddush Levana is man grama? Because it's only at the beginning of the month? Shkayach. The reason why the mitzvah of Kiddush Levana is only in the beginning of the month is because the moon happens to renew itself at the beginning of the month. The physical phenomenon of the moon's disappearance and birth only comes at the beginning of the month. So it's not caused by time. There is only a new moon at the beginning of the month. Achilas matzah, you could eat matzah 365, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The Torah is coming and saying, no, it's only the 7 days of Pesach. You could shake the lulav and esrog whenever you want, if not for the fact that the Torah is putting a time frame on the mitzvah. But Kiddush Levana is a physical phenomenon that only presents itself at a certain time. And therefore, says Rav Shlomo Kluger, I'm not telling you whether women should do it or not, but one thing I'll tell you is, it's not Zman Grama. So what does this have to do with the price of tea in China? Comes Hagoin. What? Comes Rabbi Yechiel Yaakov Weinberg, the Baal Sridei Aish, and he says, we have this Ramban, who mysteriously lists Sefiras HaOmer as Ein Hazman Grama. What's Pshat in the Ramban? Says the Sridei Aish, let's clarify Hakira. I would have said that the mitzvah of Sefiras is counting 49 days. So theoretically, without the Torah's time parameter, you could count any 49 days. You could count from Lag BaOmer till Tisha B'Av. You count from Tisha B'Av till Yom Kippur. You count Yom Kippur until tax season. You can count from tax season. Whatever you want to do. You could count 49 days. And the Torah comes along and says, no, count the days between the second day of Pesach and Shavuos. That's what I would have said. But that's not correct. Because the mitzvah of Sefiras HaOmer is triggered by a time frame. It's mehachel, chermesh, ba'akama, tachel, lisbar, shiva, shavuos. When the sickle touches the standing grain, start to count. Which means it's not governed by time like matzah is, where you could have theoretically done it any time, and the Torah is putting a time frame. The mitzvah of Sefira is when the physical phenomenon of standing grain presents itself and you begin to cut, that is when you start to count Sefira. That's not Zman Grama. That's the physical phenomenon of the standing grain presenting itself at this time of the year. That's why the Ramban writes, says about Sri Deyesh, that Sefiras HaOmer is Ein Hazman Grama. Because just like Kiddush Levana, which Rav Shlomo Kluger says, and Rabbi Olbaum says, is Ein Hazman Grama. Why is it Ein Hazman Grama? Because it's not the Torah's parameter of time, but it's merely the physical, the Metzios. It's the physical phenomenon presenting itself in this way at this time, like a new fruit, like Kiddush Levana, and like Mehachel Chermesh Vakama. So that is the explanation of the Baal Sridei Hoish. So far, Rabbi said we've had a number of possibilities. Number one, we have the answer to Avnei Nezer, that the reason why maybe women are chayiv in Sefiras HaOmer and it's in Azman Grama is really it's Azman Grama, but it's a Zman that women are chayiv in because it's dependent on the second day of Pesach. That's answer number one. Answer number two that Rabbi Warman suggested is that since Sefira is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, and one of the mitzvahs d'Rabbanan, and according to the Shita of the Rambam, all the mitzvahs d'Rabbanan are merely subjective ways of fulfilling the ratzon of the Torah of Loisasur. And since Loisasur is Ein Hazman Grama, the particulars of Loisasur are Ein Hazman Grama. Or we have this answer that the mitzvah of Sefira is not governed by time, it's merely when the physical phenomenon presents itself. Comes Rabbi Malkiel Tzvi Tenenbaum. The Divrei Malkiel, the Rav of Lamja, and so there were three sisters. Yeah, three sisters. Two of the sisters had sons who were Gedolei Torah. One was the mother of Reb Tzadok HaKohen. One was the mother of Reb Yitzchak Avigdor, the Baal Pardes. The Baal Pardes Rimonim an Hilchos Nida. And the third sister went her whole life b'tzar. She didn't have a ben Talmud Chacham until she had a grandson who grew up to be the Divrei Malkiel. And then she said that now she could die. Divrei Malkiel has a haskama from none other than Reb Chaim Brisker. Says the Divrei Malkiel. He quotes the Ramban. Divrei Malkiel, Chela Gimel, Simanei. He quotes the Ramban. And the Ramban again says, Sefiras HaOmer is mitzvah saseh she'en grama. It's a tmiyah. Says the Divrei Malkiel, a pashut answer. Upashut sheyesh tal sofer. What? It's a printer's error. Printers? How could the printer make a mistake? Shaykh. The printer made a mistake. How did he make a mistake? So he explains three ways. Number one, first he wrote Mem Tes Taf Ayin, which is the Rashi Tevis for Matnas Aniyim, Tzedakah. But then the next printer wrote, instead of Mem Taf Ayin, Samach Hey Ayin. And Samach Hey Ayin, the next printer thought stood for Sefiras HaOmer, and he wrote Sefiras HaOmer. But nobody in their right mind would ever say Sefiras HaOmer is Mitzvah Saseh She'en Hazman Grama. Or even better, says the Divrei Malkiel, the printer wrote Samach Hey Ayin. You know what Samach Hey Ayin stands for? Seder HaAvodah. Karbanos. Women are chayiv in karbanos. And the printer after thought Samach Hey Ayin. Sefiras HaOmer! So he wrote Sefiras HaOmer. Or, says the Divrei Malkiel, it could be that since the carbon on Shavuos of the Shtei HaLechem requires Sefira, and that carbon of the Shtei HaLechem women are chayiv in, because women are chayiv in karbanos tzibor, so it could be they would be chayiv in Sefira because of that. But bottom line is, ha'ikr nirali, that the printers gave us fertile ground to give a shiur for an hour, but if not for the printers, then nobody would have ever made this mistake, and we never would have had anything to discuss. But Baruch Hashem, the printers came along, and they wrote the wrong thing in the Ramban. They wrote that Sefiras HaOmer was a mitzvah saseh she'en hazman grama, so we're able to be mafalpel with the answer of the Avnei Nezer. We're able to learn the machlokes between the Rambam and the Bahag. whether the mitzvahs Rabbanan are 7 mitzvahs d'oraisa or 1 mitzvah d'oraisa, and in that case maybe it's not Zman Grama. We're able to learn from the Shlomo Kluger that Kiddush Levana is Ein Zman Grama, and many other things that we were zeicha to learn. And thank you everyone for coming. Have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.